The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, I just want to thank you so much for joining us for our part 3 of our Google AdWords webinar series with ConnectAd. It's 12 right now, so we're just going to wait another 2 minutes just for a few more people to roll into the webinar. So if you can just sit tight, you can get your lunch, and then we'll get started in about 2 minutes. All right, well, it's at the 12:02 minute mark, so I just want to thank you again for joining us for part 3 of the Google AdWords webinar series. I just want to take time to just speak a little bit about TechSoup Canada. As you know, this webinar series is hosted by TechSoup, but if you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits use technology efficiently and effectively. We do this with multiple things, but one of our flagship programs is our technology donations program. We partner with other software companies like Microsoft, Adobe, Intuit, and Symantec, and we offer their products at a discount or for free. And it's available for a very small administration fee that's typically like 90% off of the retail market price. So we're hoping that this will help you really enlarge your budget and really put all your resources into your mission, but still have access to the latest and greatest technology to help you achieve it. We also create and curate tech resources such as this webinar series. We have a blog that we often cover topics such as like what is cloud computing, what is a CRM, and just best practices that we believe will help your nonprofit. If you're interested in following us on social media, we curate tech resources from other capacity builders, and we also host events. Our meetup is Toronto Net Tuesday, but don't let the Toronto name fool you. We live stream our events so anyone can join us. And then from time to time we host these webinar series that we believe will really help nonprofits get more acquainted with some of the technology best practices out there. And just as a note, TechSoup Canada is part of a global network. We have other offices and partnerships from around the world. So if you have friends in Africa, Japan, or Taiwan, or in the States, just let them know that there's another TechSoup office waiting to help them out. And we are a small nonprofit based in Toronto, so if you are in the area, you can feel free to stop by. We are a program of the Center for Social Innovation, so we are actually based out of the CSI Spadina location. If you're curious on what that is, you can look us up. Just very quickly, the Center for Social Innovation is a community launchpad for other social entrepreneurs and people who want to change the world. For today's agenda, I will shortly pass it back to ConnectAd, but just so everyone's aware, the format is we'll let Simon from ConnectAd do the presentation. And throughout the presentation, if you have any questions or concerns, you can feel free to chat or submit your questions in the question box. And our moderators will handle your concerns. So Charles from ConnectAd will answer your questions that are related to Google AdWords, ad grants, or ConnectAd services. For myself and Tierney, we're both from TechSoup Canada, so we'll help you answer questions that you have about Google for nonprofits, things like how do you apply apply? Are you eligible? And things that are related to the TechSoup Canada account. But at the end of the webinar, we will have a big Q&A session from 1 to 1:30. So that is where I will read out some of the questions that were submitted in the Q&A chat box, and Simon will answer it. So today's speaker is Simon from ConnectAd. He and Charles, they help nonprofits obtain and manage free Google AdWords advertising through the Google Ad Grants program. They're very experienced in this. They've been running Google AdWords advertising campaigns for other nonprofits and small businesses and other large businesses for about 5 years. They've been managing over $7 million in annual fee advertising funding. And Simon is certified by Google as an online advertising expert, and he often contributes his time to help other nonprofits just understand this offering and help them out in their strategies as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pass everything back to Simon.
Okay, thanks so much, Joyce, for the introduction. And welcome everyone to today's webinar on Google Analytics. This is part 3 of the webinar series. In part 1, we talked about what is Google Grants and how to get it. And in part 2, we talked about the 10 tips of getting more out of your Google Ad Grants program. And so today is actually a really exciting topic. We're moving a little bit away from the Google AdWords realm. We're going to talk a lot about what's called Google Analytics today. So before we get into that, I actually want to ask a quick poll, and this just lets me understand what kind of audience I'm speaking to today. So this poll is pretty simple. Does your nonprofit use Google Analytics? So I just pulled up the poll right there. There's a yes, no, and sometimes people don't know, which is totally fine. It's totally valid. So have that as an option. So I'm just going to wait to hear from you, and this just will let me cater how I speak to you today about Google Analytics. So we're at about 80%. I'm going to give it a couple seconds more. Okay, I'm going to give it 5 seconds, and I'm going to close the poll and share it with you. Okay, fantastic. So let's see. 64% of you said yes, which is fantastic. 28% of you said no. Totally okay, because I'm actually going to talk about what Google Analytics is and how to set it up, so that'll be very useful for you. And 8% said don't know, so that will be something nice for you to verify and just understand a little bit more of. So great to hear from you. All right, so let's talk about our agenda for today. Number 1, we're going to talk about why Google Analytics helps. So in this stage, I'm going to talk about the role of Google Analytics as well as the role of Google AdWords, and just discuss how each of those components play with each other and really help each other perform better. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to get more specific. How do you set up Google Analytics? So I'm actually going to show you with a new Google Analytics account where you find things, and just give you a quick demonstration of how you would install your Google Analytics, because I know that can be a little bit tricky for some people. So we'll talk about that. Number 3, I want you to really understand something called conversion tracking. For me, this is one of the most beneficial things that you can get from Google Analytics, and this is what's going to let you really fine-tune your Google Ad Grants or your Google AdWords account into something that creates real impact for your organization. So conversion tracking is really, really important. So I'm going to spend number 3 on it. And number 4 is also related to that. How do you link your Google Analytics account to your Google AdWords account? This can also be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to show you in a real account how to set it up for the first time. So we've talked a lot about Google AdWords before, and so what you see on the right side of the diagram, that's the Google AdWords, the logo, right? And on the left side, Google Analytics. So we haven't talked at all about Google Analytics, but it's actually something that's really important. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what analytics is, and then just tell you about the roles of each of these two systems. So Google Analytics. It is a 100% free tool. So that is the first thing off the bat that that you should understand, or that I should express to you, right? It's something that's completely free for anyone to use. So that's really fantastic. Number two, what Google Analytics does is it gathers and reports data about your website's visitors, right? So specifically, it tracks and reports things like the number of people who are going or visiting your website, as well as what these people do when they get to your website, right? Without something like Google Analytics, you really don't know any of this stuff, right? By default, some websites will have some kind of basic analytics, so they will tell you like how many people are visiting your website. But with analytics, with Google Analytics, you get more information in that you understand what they do once they get to your website. So that's going to play a really important role in the performance of your Google AdWords campaigns. So I just want to give you some sample metrics, data that you would get inside Google Analytics, and that is applicable to Google AdWords, which is what we're going to talk about in a second. So the first is called bounce rate. Now, bounce rate is a very important metric. It's also the most confusing metric that you will see inside Google Analytics. So I just want to define this one for you. Bounce rate is the percentage of sessions where the visitor only views one page and then leaves, or you can think about it as they visit one page and then bounce away from your website. So that's what a bounce rate means, right? And it's expressed as a percentage, right? So you'll always see bounce rate expressed as a percentage. There's another metric that you'll see inside analytics called pages per session. So very like a simple one to understand, but it's the average number of pages a visitor will see in a single session, right? Number three, you have something called average session duration. Also simple. It's the average length of time a visitor is on your website, right? And that would be called a session. When someone goes to your website and then they leave, that would be defined as a session. So you can measure how long they spend on your entire website. And the last one is called conversions. Like I was saying in the beginning, conversions is something that's incredibly important. So we're going to spend a lot more time talking about conversions. But just to give you a basic definition of what a conversion is, it's the number of completed actions that were defined inside Google Analytics as a conversion goal. And you can loosely think about a conversion as somebody completing an action that you deem is valuable. So you'll see some examples of these conversions. But before we do that, I want to run a quick quiz for you, because there was that one metric that I said was very tricky. So I want to make sure you understand that concept, because it's going to help you as you manage your own account. So quick quiz. What is bounce rate, right? So bounce rate is the percentage of sessions where, and then there's 4 choices. So I'm going to give you some time to think about it and answer. Okay, great. We have 69% of people voted, 71%. I'm going to give it 20 more seconds and just to see what votes we get. Okay, great. So I'm going to close the poll now. I'm going to share the answer now. Okay, so I'm closing the poll. And very happy to see that 88% of you got the right answer. 12% of you picked A. I deliberately made it kind of a tricky answer, but it's basically the number or the percentage of visitors that are one-page visits, right? So they only see one page and then they leave your site. So that's what a bounce rate is, and I'm really glad no one chose number 4. So that was good to see. All right, so let's move on. I'm happy that you understand what bounce rate is. That's going to be a really important metric for yourselves when you look at your AdWords account. So that's why I really want to stress that one. Okay, so that is Google Analytics, right? It tracks and gathers this data about what people do when they get on your website, and I explained 4 metrics in particular that you would get from Google Analytics. It's not just limited to these 4, but these are the ones that are going to be relevant to today's conversation. There's actually more metrics that you get inside Analytics, and there's a bunch more stuff you get, but we're just going to highlight these for now. So those are bounce rate, pages per session, average session duration, and conversions. Okay, so that's Google Analytics for now. Let's talk a little bit about Google AdWords. So like I said, in the first 2 webinars, it was all about Google Grants and Google AdWords. So what is Google AdWords? Let me just reinforce this concept. Google AdWords is Google's advertising platform. And this interface lets you manage your Google Ad Grants campaigns, right? So for example, when I say campaign, I mean, if you're running an awareness campaign, you want to generate awareness about a specific event or a cause, you would run a campaign for that. If you wanted to fundraise, right, you would run a fundraising account, or if you want to get volunteers, you would run a volunteer account. So these are all campaigns that you would run inside your Google Ad Grants campaigns, and I also refer to it as Google AdWords. So Google AdWords also reports data about your campaigns, as in how your campaigns are structured, as well as the performance inside your campaigns. So how your campaigns are structured, this is defined inside your Google AdWords account. You also understand how many people will click on your ads, right? And how much free money you spent on your ads. So these are just some things that you get inside your Google AdWords accounts. Now there's 4 other pieces of data that I want to pull out from the Google AdWords account specifically. So the first one is the campaigns, the ad groups, the keywords, and the ad text, right? So these are all elements of things that you see inside your AdWords account. They define the structure of your AdWords account. They define how your campaigns are actually set up and what goes inside them, right? So this provides you the structure. You have a metric called clicks, right? This one is expressed as a number. Clicks is the number of people that would actually click on your ad. It's very similar to the other metric called impressions, also expressed as a number, but impressions is the number of people that viewed a page that contains your ad, right? So every click you get will have at least an impression, but not every impression will lead to a click, right? So those 2 metrics are important, and they combine to a third metric called CTR, or click-through rate. This one is presented as a percentage, right? It's a rate, and it is defined as the number of clicks divided by the number of impressions. And just generally speaking, CTR is a measure of how effective your ads are, right? So the higher CTR you have, it means the more people clicked relative to a small number of impressions, right? And conversely, if no one clicks on your ads compared to a high number of impressions, it means you had a very low CTR. So CTR is generally the standard for how you assess the effectiveness of your ads and how they perform. All right, so let's bring it back. I just want to reinforce one of those metrics. This is the important one. Similar to analytics, this is going to be something that's really critical for you, so I want to reinforce this. So what is CTR, or click-through rate? And I've given you 4 answers, and just do your best and guess which one it is, or you remember which one it is. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer this particular question. Okay, looking good so far. The results look good so far. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds just to get more people voted. Okay, 80% voted. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds, and then we're going to close this poll. Okay, fantastic. So let me share the answer with you. So 84% of you said number of clicks divided by number of impressions. Fantastic. I know the other answers are a little bit tricky too, so below that, the 13% has number of conversions divided by number of clicks. So that is actually something called conversion rate. And that's going to be something really relevant to you as well. But for now, we're just going to talk about click-through rates. So that's the number of clicks divided by number of impressions. And this is a very AdWords specific metric that you're going to get. So I'm going to get rid of this poll and just bring it back to the two elements, the two systems that we're talking about, right? So we have Google AdWords and we have Google AdWords, which provides data such as campaigns, ad groups, keywords, ad text, which is the structure of your account, as well as provides you the metrics of clicks, impressions, and CTR. So that's Google AdWords. I'm going to bring back Google Analytics, right? So you remember Google Analytics provides the metrics of bounce rate, pages per session, average session, duration, and conversion. So what I want you to see in this diagram, you have two separate systems, right? And they provide two separate types of data, right? So Analytics gives you data about what happens on your website. Google AdWords gives you data about how your ad campaigns perform. Now, what's so valuable about having Analytics is that you can actually connect your Analytics account to your AdWords account. And what happens is once you've connected, you can actually pass information from one system to another. And they play really well with each other because both these products are Google products, right? So they connect really well with each other, and you can pull data from one system to another, and it's going to give you a much more complete picture of what's actually going on with your campaigns. What you see here is two columns. On the left side, column A, and you see the logos beside each of those elements, right? So in column A, this is the structure of your AdWords accounts, right? You have your campaigns, your ad groups, your keywords, and your ad text. On column B, these are metrics that you can find within each of the systems, right? And so you see the first three, clicks, impressions, CTR, those three you get from AdWords. So without using Analytics, you can use metrics from column B, such as clicks or CTR, and you can get those metrics at each of the levels inside column A. So you can get clicks at the campaign, the ad group, keyword, or ad text level, as well as CTR at any of those levels in your account. What happens is once you connect Analytics to your system, you can start pulling in additional metrics, right? So things like bounce rate or conversions, especially conversions. You can pull that information inside your AdWords account and actually attribute it to any level of your AdWords account. So you can understand conversions at the campaign level or the ad group level or the keyword level or the ad text level. And so this is something that's really powerful, and this is why Analytics helps you so much with AdWords performance. So what it does is it gives you a more complete picture about how your Google Ad Grant is performing. And here's an example of where this might be the case. So this table of data, just for example, you have campaign number 1 and campaign number 2. And inside your AdWords account, you get information like clicks. So if you just see this data and you see campaign 1 is generating 1,000 clicks and campaign number 2 is generating 10,000 clicks in let's say it's a month period, you know, you're obviously going to say that campaign 2 is performing a lot better than campaign 1. But what happens is once you can pull in data from Analytics, it gives you a more complete picture of what's happening. So for example, if you're pulling in the conversion column, and remember that conversion is an action completion that you deem is valuable, right? So imagine that this particular conversion was a donation, right? And I see now that campaign 1, even though it has 1,000 clicks, it's getting me 50 conversions versus campaign 2, which is 10,000 clicks and 5 conversions, right? Once you have both those pieces of data, you can actually say that campaign 1 is performing much better than campaign 2 in terms of real impact, right? So even though campaign 2 is performing better from an ad campaign perspective, in terms of real impact, campaign number 1 is actually doing much better. So what you can do at this point is you can optimize your AdWords account based on real performance and real impact instead of just the ad performance. And that's why Analytics and AdWords together is so crucial. So those two systems are incredibly important. So let's talk a little bit about setting up Google Analytics. I know that something like 68% of you said that you already have Google Analytics, but it's kind of nice to just understand how it works. So here is the theoretical framework about how analytics is set up. So I'm going to explain the theory, and then I'm going to go into the account and then show you how it's done. So you have your Google Analytics account, right? And this is something that you set up, you sign up for with your Google account or your Gmail account. And once you create your Google Analytics account, you will get a unique ID code. And so this unique ID code is something that is specific to your Google Analytics account. What you do with this unique ID code is you insert it into your website, right? So what I really want you to take away from this diagram, because people who I talk to about this get confused about how it's set up, but just know that you have one unique ID code, right? And this is something that's specific both to your Google Analytics account as well it's specific to your website. So provided, like, only websites where it contains that unique ID code will you be able to get that information inside that Google Analytics account that you set up. So it's all linked together. So let me show you the demonstration about how you set this up. So I'm going to open up my browser now. I've created an account specifically for today's purpose, just to demonstrate this to you. So this is what it looks like when you sign into Google Analytics. The first thing you do when you just sign up for this is you need to identify what your unique ID code is. So you would go to the admin panel at the top. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to scroll down to, in the middle panel it says property. So I'm going to scroll down to tracking info and then tracking code. And it's going to provide me my unique ID code, right? So you see it in this area. This is something that will be unique to this specific Google Analytics account and to my specific Gmail account, right? So what I do, I just simply copy the code exactly as it appears. So I'm going to right-click copy. And you need to insert this in what's called, right before what's called the closing head tag in your website. So for example, this is the Connect Ad website. So imagine that I'm trying to install Google Analytics for the first time. So I'm going to show this website, but in the code format, right? So this is what the website code looks like. I'm going to what's called the closing head tag. So it'll look like this, right? There's a bracket and a slash head and then the close bracket, right? And then you insert the code right here. So you see it's actually already inserted into my web page, right? This is the specific Google Analytics code that you want to use. Could be a little bit tricky for those of you who are not familiar with website coding. So just so you know, if you have a webmaster or just someone in your organization who has IT experience, this should be familiar to them, right? It won't be too complicated for someone who has like web design experience. But just at a high level, I just want you to understand how it works, how Google Analytics plays with your website. Okay, so let's go back into PowerPoint. I just want to highlight one more thing. For those of you who use a CMS or a content management system, so for example, something like WordPress or Drupal, usually those systems have options where you can very quickly add your code. And so what you do is you simply will paste that specific ID code into that plugin or that option inside WordPress or Drupal or whatever CMS you have, and it will automatically install it on every page of your website. And sorry, I should have mentioned that you need to install this code on every single page of your website that you want to track information for. So this is actually a really quick way of doing it. If you have something like WordPress or Drupal, some kind of CMS, it makes it very easy to do that. Okay, so let's move on to number 3, which is conversion tracking. I really stressed conversion tracking before because this is where, what I believe, this is where you'll get the most value from Google Analytics. So first, let's talk about what conversions is and just reinforce this concept. Conversion is an action completion that happens on your website, and it's something that you define as valuable. And some very popular examples of what these conversions might be are a completed donation, or let's say someone registers for an event or like signs up by email for something, right? They register for something. Or like, let's say you make a sale. So, if you sell goods or services, that would be something that could potentially be very valuable for your organization. So these are just examples of conversions. It's not limited to these things, but these are just popular examples of conversions that you might want to track inside analytics. So conversions must also be defined inside Google Analytics using one of the following 4 scenarios. The first is called a duration goal. The second is a pages per screens per session goal. You have the event goal, and finally you have the destination goal, and that's the one we're really going to focus on. But I want you to understand each of these goals, and you can decide how you use each of these different goals inside Google Analytics. So let's talk first about duration goals. Now, a duration goal means that you're defining a goal completion as a user spending X amount of time on the site. So X is what you define inside analytics. So for example, if you wanted to say someone spends more than 5 minutes on your website, I'm going to call that a conversion. That is something that you can define inside analytics as a duration goal. So some example cases where you might use this. Number one, imagine you have some kind of embedded YouTube video or like a Vimeo video on your website, right? And something that you would deem valuable is if someone actually watches this video, right? And in our example, let's say it's a 3-minute long video. So one way that you could potentially do this is to define a duration goal as saying someone spends over 3 minutes of time, as in that's the length of the video. So if someone actually watched the entire video, I'm going to call that a duration goal completion. And so that would be a conversion that you've defined. Another example case where you might use this is, let's say you blog, right? And you want people to read specific articles, right? So what you could say as a conversion is someone reads a blog post that on average you think would take 5 minutes to complete reading it, right? So at an average reading speed or whatever it is, 5 minutes of reading time would be deemed as valuable. So you would say, I'm going to define a duration goal as 5 minutes. And anytime someone does that, I have an idea that they have actually engaged and read my blog post, right? So that is another way that you could potentially use your duration goals. Let me quickly show you inside Analytics how to set up a duration goal. Let's go back into the browser and into the Google Analytics account. I'm actually going to return back to the admin panel. This is where I would go to set up my goals. It exists on the rightmost panel of the admin page, right? So it's the one that says View. I'm going to scroll down to where it says Goals. I'm going to click on Goals. I want to select plus New Goal, right? And the first thing you do once you get there is just give it a name. So let's say we want to do the video view, right? So let's say I'm going to call this a video view. And I'm defining a duration goal in this example, right? So I'm going to click on Next Step. And imagine that my video was 3 minutes, so I would just make this option 3 minutes and 0 seconds, and I would hit Create Goal. And that's it. So what happens after you do that? Anytime someone fulfills these specific parameters, it will record as a conversion inside my Analytics account. So that's all there is to it, right? Really simple. Okay, so let's go back into PowerPoint. Let's talk about the next goal. This one is called Pages per Session Goal. Pretty simple, but the definition is a user visits X amount of pages in a session, where X is whatever number you define, right? So some example cases of where you might use something like this is, let's say you're looking for people to just really engage with your site, right? You want them to be interested in your content. You want them to click around and look at all sorts of different stuff. I find this like especially applicable for blogs, right? Because with blogs, you really want people to read an article, but then go on to another article that might be interesting to them, and just kind of explore like a number of different content. So let's say in this example, conversion is defined as someone reading multiple blog posts, right? And so as a goal definition, you can say that this person visited 3 sessions or more, or 3 pages or more. So as in they read at least 3 articles, something like that, right? So let me go back into my browser, into Google Analytics, and I want to show you how to create this goal. So similar to before, we're already at the goal page. I'm just going to click on plus new goal. In this one, it was blog read, something like that. Blog read, blog engage, maybe. That's a better term. Okay, so blog engage, we're going to click on pages per screens per session goal. I'm going to go to next step. And very simply, you can say 3, right? And make sure it's set to greater than 3. And that's it, and I would hit create goal. Same as before, when someone fulfills those parameters, you would see that conversion appear inside Google Analytics. So let's go back into PowerPoint now. We're going to move on to the third one. This one is called event tracking, and using event tracking as a conversion. Event is defined as a click on a website element that you have specifically tagged as an event. Now let me add a quick disclaimer to this one. Event tracking is a little bit tricky. It requires special website coding that you need to put onto those website elements that involve clicks. I'm not going to go into event tracking and like how to code that at this point, but if someone asks a question at the end of the webinar and we have time, I can definitely show you how event tracking works. But just to like preface that, it's a little bit tricky when you get involved with event tracking. But it's something that can be potentially very valuable to you. So let me explain what event tracking can actually do for you. Let's take an example case, right? We're going to look again at video plays. If you remember, in the first one I defined, right, the duration goal, I also was trying to track for video plays, but sort of using a proxy for that, right? I'm saying that if my video is 3 minutes long, I'm going to define anything longer than 3 minutes as a video play. It's a kind of a nice way to think about it, but it's not the most accurate. They could be looking at anything else on the site for 3 minutes, and I'm going to call that a conversion. So it's not actually the most accurate way of tracking something like a video play. So this is where event tracking comes in. Event tracking gives you something that's a lot more specific and accurate. So in this example for video play, I'm going to call the conversion same as before. A user views a video, but this time I'm going to define this goal as someone clicking on the video play button, right? So imagine an embedded YouTube video, someone clicks on play. I'm going to say whenever someone clicks on play, I'm calling that a conversion, right? And so it gets a little bit tricky, but you need to create some special code for that, and then you attach it to the code where the play button is. So anytime someone clicks on the play button, it also sends special information to Google Analytics saying that someone actually clicked on this button. Okay, another example case where you might use this, and I find this is actually a really good one too. Someone downloads a document off your website. So for example, as a conversion, we say a user downloads a PDF, and this is something that's really, really good for those of you who value awareness and education, right? So if you have some kind of educational PDF with some great content in there, you want to know when someone actually downloads that, you have to set up something called, you have to set up an event tracking for that. So the goal definition in this scenario is someone clicking on that download button. So that's how you would track this specific event. Another example, another really powerful one too, form submissions, right? So for example, let's say you're trying to get volunteers. You have a form that exists on your website where they enter in their information, right? Name, email, contact, that kind of stuff. And you want to know if someone actually submits that form. You would use an event tracking goal, and you would define it as someone clicking on the form submission button, right? So that's how you would track a form submission as an event tracking goal. Number 4, you have outbound links. So let me explain this a little bit. With Google Analytics, if you remember, I was defining what this is, right? Google Analytics tracks what happens when people visit your site and what they do when they get on your site. What Google Analytics cannot do is track what happens on other people's sites, right? So when you have something called an outbound link, as in a link that goes to a third party, a lot of times you lose information. You won't necessarily know if they clicked out of your website. So that's why this defining this as an event can actually be something that's really valuable, right? So let's say, for example, our conversion in this case is a user clicks on a link that exists on your website, and it goes to another website. And imagine it's a link that would be really valuable for them, right? So the goal definition is they would simply be clicking on that specific link. So that's what you would define as an event goal. So I'm just going to show you very quickly where you would go to find this. I won't go too much into depth because it's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to click on plus new goal. Let's say the event was outbound link. I'm just going to click on event right here, next step, and you'll see a couple options here, but you can define your events in 3 different ways. But we won't really get into this at this point. If there's time at the end and if people are interested, we can talk a little bit more about how that works. But we're going to leave this for now. So I'm going to hit cancel here. Okay, so let's go back into PowerPoint. Let's talk about the last one. This is my favorite one. It's called Destination Goal. It's my favorite because it is just incredibly powerful. Out of all the other goals, I think Destination Goal is the most powerful. The second most would probably be event tracking. But Destination Goal to me is by far my favorite goal. The reason why is that Destination Goal lets you track and define a user visiting a specific page on your website. And probably off the bat, that doesn't sound too impressive, but there are ways to use this goal that can be incredibly powerful. So here is an example progression of someone visiting your website. So imagine a visitor in step 1, they go to your home page, right? Now in step 2, let's say they go to a page where you have a certain goal on it, right? As in this is, on this page there exists a call to action of something that is really valuable to you, right? And once they complete that action, they are taken to another page which acts as a confirmation page, right? So once they've completed whatever goal it is that you want them to complete in step 2, they get taken to another page after that, which you call a confirmation page. And so what you would do with the destination goal is to define that last page, right, the confirmation page, as the destination goal. And this confirmation page, whatever it is, you would set up as a page that you can only get to if someone completes the goal, right? So maybe that's a little bit confusing. Let's take a specific example of this. So let's look at donations as a specific example. Imagine you have a visitor, step 1, going to your home page. In step 2, they go to your donate page. And once they complete the donation, they get sent to step 3, a thank you page, right? So if someone completes a donation, you want to say, thank you so much for the donation. This is what it's going towards, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe here's your receipt, that kind of stuff. So you have a thank you page that they go to automatically after they complete a donation, and you would simply define step 3 as destination goal. So using this method of destination goals, you can actually start tracking whether someone even completed a donation. Other popular example of this is event registration, right? Homepage in step 1. In step 2, they get taken or they visit the event info page, right? And once they register for the event, they get sent to a registration confirmation page, right? And that is what you would define as destination goal. Therefore, you can very accurately track how many people registered for your event, right? And example 3, volunteer sign up, similar to before. In step 1, people visit your home page. In step 2, they go to your volunteer page where you have content about, why they should volunteer, what opportunities are available to them, right? And in step 3, you have the form submission confirmation page, and then you would track this last page as a destination goal. So let me, there's a quiz I want to ask, but before the quiz, I actually want to demonstrate how you set this up, and then I'm going to ask you the quiz after that. Okay, so just be prepared for that. All right, let's go into Google Analytics, the browser again. We're going to click on the plus new go button once again. I want to set an event. So, of course, one of the most popular ones is donation. So let's use donation as our example today. And we're going to use the destination goal. So I'm going to click on destination. I'm going to click on next step. Okay, so a couple of things to note on this page. The first option, right, it says destination. You have 3 options here. It says equals to, begins with, and regular expression. So these mean different things. But let me enter an example first, and then I'll explain how that works. So what you're doing in a destination goal is you're actually entering the URL of whatever that confirmation or thank you page is. So imagine that for donation it was just called thankyou.html. So imagine that this would be your donation thank you page, right? This is the URL that exists. You'll note that I'm only using the form /thankyou.html. You do not actually include your domain name at this stage. You never type in your domain name. So for example, if it was charity.org/thankyou, imagine that this is the exact URL of your page. You never include your domain name. So you don't include the www.domain.org in that. So you delete that, and you're just using /thankyou.html. Okay, so let me explain these options on the left side, right? So equals to means that the destination, the URL of that destination page is exactly what's listed here. It's charity.org/thankyou.html. It's nothing else, right? If you use begins with, it means that it's tracking a page that includes whatever you've written here, and it can also include anything else beyond that, right? So a better example of this, if I just said /thankyou, and I set it to the begins with option, it will track any page that starts with thank you, but it can also have .html at the end, or it can have a bunch of different things. It could be like /thankyou/donates.html, right? This will also be included inside it begins with. So it simply takes whatever you've expressed and any actual URL with something beyond this will also be included in your conversion. And finally, you have regular expression. Regular expression just means it contains this phrase inside the URL. So it can have things before it as well as things after it, right? So any characters before or after whatever you've written in this stage. So that's how you would use these 3 options, the equal to, begins with, and regular expression. Okay, so my preference is I like using regular expression. That's just personal preference. So imagine it's just thankyou.html. and I would just type that in, and I would hit create goal, and I'm done, right? So that is how you would set up a destination goal. So let's go back into PowerPoint. As promised, there is one more quiz question to ask. So let me ask this. I want to reinforce this idea. If you were to track donations as an example, using your destination goal, what page would you be tracking? Okay, I'm going to give you some time to think about this. This is a little bit, might be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to give you some time to think about the answer. Great, we have 50% voted, so I'm going to give it a little bit more time. I want to get it to like 80% of people voted. Okay, 69%, 71%, 73%, 75%. Okay, so let's close the poll, and I'm going to share the results with you one last time. So pretty good, 80% of you got the correct answer. You are trying to track the thank you page that follows a successful donation or goal completion, whatever it is, right? The other answers will not actually work for this scenario. So it's just to make sure you track the page that follows a successful completion. All right, so let's get rid of that quiz. That's the last quiz for today, so don't worry. I want to talk about, in the last step, how to link Google Analytics and AdWords, because I was just talking about conversion goals, right, and how to set that up. You want to have that conversion data inside your AdWords account. And so you can actually track at the keyword level or at the ad text level what is leading to a conversion. Like, imagine how useful and powerful that is. Imagine you know the exact keyword that is leading to a donation on your website, right? That is so incredibly powerful. That is something that you definitely want. So that's why I want to show you how to link your Google Analytics and your AdWords account. So this is one that's going to be entirely a demonstration. So let's go into the back to the browser. This one is a little bit tricky. So because it's tricky because you kind of have to move between AdWords and Analytics to set it up for the first time. So the first thing that you should know is you have to be signed in to your Google account, which has access to both Analytics and AdWords. So it has to have access to both these accounts. So what you see here, I'm going to highlight the top right. I'm signed into my Gmail account. It says TechSoup 10/30/14, right? That's just today's date. So I just created a new account for today's purposes, right? This is the Google account. I'm also signed in to my Analytics account using TechSoup 10/30/14, right? So make sure you're set to the same account in both Analytics and AdWords. That's the only way that this will work. Also, so just so you know, you also need to be inside Analytics. You need to have basically administrative level access inside Analytics. So I'm just going to show you inside user management, you need to have edit, collaborate, and the read and analyze options, at least. You need these in order to actually be able to set up the tracking. So that's the first thing to know. All right, let's go back into the admin panel. This is where you're going to start linking your AdWords and your Analytics. So once you're signed into both systems using the same email, right, you would go to AdWords linking in the middle. And it's going to already have preloaded your AdWords account, right? So it says TechSoup, this TechSoup account, user ID 425-561-3416. And the reason it knows this is because I am signed into a Gmail account that has access to both systems. So that's why it has this already populated. I'm just going to click Continue. You can call it something. That's fine. I'm just going to leave it as is, but you can call it whatever you want. And then you go to Linked View. Just make sure you say All Website Data. and I'm going to click link accounts. All right, so step one is not done yet, so there's a couple more things to do. Now, after that, you need to verify one setting. So you would go to account settings, and just make sure that you at least have this option selected. So this one says it controls your data sharing options, and you have to allow analytics to share data with other Google products, right? So this means that it's allowing your analytics to share data with your AdWords account. So this is also something that's really important to make sure that you have selected. Okay, so after that, we're going to go back. We're going to go into the AdWords account now. So you have to set up the linking option inside Analytics first. Then you go inside your AdWords account, right? In the top right, you have this gear. That's where you find settings for your AdWords account. So you're going to click on the gear. I'm now going to go into account settings at this point. So once you're loaded, you will scroll up on the left panel to the area that says linked accounts. I'm going to click on linked accounts, and I'm going to go to Google Analytics option. Now, I see something like this. This is asking if I want to add any Google Analytics accounts into my AdWords. And so I see once I've linked it inside Analytics, I now see an option here for TechSoup, right? And it's just called TechSoup Demo for today. But I'm going to press this button, and I'm going to click Open All Website Data. I'm going to add this to my views inside AdWords. So once I've added that, I hit Save. Yes. Okay. And one last thing to do. I'm going to click down to Preferences on the left side, and I want to make sure that this option is set to yes. It says auto tagging, right? So make sure you have auto tagging selected to yes. If not, your information is going to look a little funky inside Analytics. It won't look. It may not make sense. So you need to use auto tagging at this stage. So I'm going to click Save Changes, and that's it. So once I've done that, I've completed all the steps. Now I will get the information on both sides. And so when I actually go to campaigns, right, if I go to the metrics column, I just want to show you, oh, you know what, I actually can't show you at this point because I didn't create an account, but you'll see that there will be an area where you can import data from your Analytics account inside columns, and you can match it to all of your keywords, your campaigns, your ad groups, and your ad text. So those are the steps doing it. So let's go back into PowerPoint. I just want to reinforce a couple of important things from what I just did because I know that was a lot. Remember, number one, you have to be signed in to a Google account that has access to both your Google AdWords account and your unique Google Analytics account that's associated with your website. So remember that. Number two, remember that you need to have administrative level access inside Google Analytics, or else you won't have sufficient permissions to actually install the link with AdWords. Number three, your Google Analytics account must be set to share data with other Google products. This is a must, or else it will not work. And step four, you have to link the Analytics account inside AdWords. So you have to go into your AdWords account and actually select your Analytics account and say, I want to link this. Lastly, you want to make sure you have auto tagging on as an option. If not, the data is going to look a little funky and not as accurate as it would be if you had auto tagging. So that's it for me today. I'm going to take questions now. I'm sure you've had a lot of questions as we've gone through, so I'm going to let Joyce kind of ask some questions on your behalf at this point.
All right, thank you so much, Simon, and especially for taking us through this presentation of Google Analytics and AdWords. It's a lot of very straightforward but also very confusing steps, so thank you for taking us through that demo. So for the first question from our audience, can we tell which page the viewers saw as part of the bounce rate in Google Analytics?
Okay, so that is a great question. Okay, so yeah, there is kind of a way to do that. There's actually two ways to do it, but let me speak more specifically to AdWords. Okay, so what I need here is actually an example where, let me actually do something really quickly. So I'm going to set up a campaign really quickly so I actually have something to show you. So give me a moment. I'm going to set this up. Yes, yes, yes. 330 per day. Keep going. Save, continue. Okay, let's see. Sample headline. Sample headline. This is a sample ad text headline. Whatever. Connectad.ca. Done, done, done. So all I'm doing is I'm just putting in dummy data so I can actually have something to show you. Okay, so there is one way to do this. Here I'm going to import those columns. Remember I was saying how once you've connected the accounts you can import that data. So let me show you that first. I'm going to click on columns. I'm going to go to customize columns. I'm going to scroll down to Google Analytics and it's going to let me import bounce rate, pages per visit, and average visit durations. And I'm going to hit save. So now I have columns here, and I'm going to show you where they are. Right, bounce rate, pages per visit, average session duration. So basically, AdWords is now letting me pull in the analytics information. So you can understand which pages led to bounce rate by going to your ad panel, right? So inside your ad panel, when you actually create ads, you are creating first a headline and 2 lines of description, and you're using something called a destination URL. The destination URL is the page that you want people to go to when they click on your ad, right? So what that means is you know for a specific destination URL what your bounce rate is, right? So through that means you can know which of your landing pages are associated with what bounce rate. So that's one way that you can actually do this. Probably the better way, and this is getting a little bit maybe too complex because I'm starting to go into analytics, but I'll show you a little bit. If you actually go inside analytics, you have a report. If you go to the left, and yeah, this is going way off what I was intending to do, but if you go to this report that says behavior site content, this will actually list all the pages on your website that people viewed, and then from there you can also identify bounce rate at each of those specific pages. So that's the other way that you could do this.
All right, thank you so much. I know it's a loaded question because there's a lot that you can show us. So thank you for answering that in a very succinct way. So on the topic of bounce rate, what is a recommended goal that you would give for a bounce rate in Google Analytics?
Sure. So I just want to clarify one thing, just to be like super clear, and I don't think that whoever asked the question meant this, but when we say goal, like you can't define it as a conversion goal for bounce rate. So I just want to make that one point clear. But generally with bounce rate, 60% is kind of your benchmark. When you go above 60%, that's where it's getting like really bad, right? That's where your bounce rate is really concerning, is what I mean. And then anything below 6% is more of a natural range, right? So it's actually, the range is like 40 to 60% is more of like a natural organic range of what your bounce rate would be, right? Because of course not everyone is going to not bounce, right? So 60% is generally what you're looking for.
Okay, that's great. So you defined a lot of goals during the Google Analytics portion, and you mentioned the duration goal. So what happens if someone's window is open for a long length of time and you set a destination goal for, let's say, 3 minutes? Would that open window count towards that number?
Right. Great question. So there are some provisions to how like Google tracks a session, right? So imagine that someone visits a page and they go to something else, like another tab or another page. The session will actually just like suspend during that time. So that means that the session duration won't keep accumulating if they go to something else. Now, if someone just leaves the window open and like they literally just like leave their chair and it's still open on the browser, in that scenario, it may actually activate your goal. But I believe there is also like a timeout for like if a page is inactive. The session duration will actually like stop after a certain amount of time if it's just like if nothing happens. And I also believe that there is a way for you to customize what that time period is. So you can actually say like if nothing happens in a session for more than this amount of time, you want to suspend that session. But that's not actually something that I usually like ever really get asked about. So that's why I don't know the specifics about that. But in theory, that's what you're able to do.
No, that's great information. Even if you're not quite sure, we can always Google it later. So in terms of other goals, one of them you mentioned is a destination goal. And during the quiz, you were saying if we were to track like a successful donation, you would recommend the destination goal to be the thank you page. So this question is, what if our organization does not have a thank you page due to the donation going to a third-party site? Not PayPal, but to another third-party donation processing site.
Right. So that it becomes more problematic if that is a scenario. It's possible that whatever third party you're using will actually allow you to redirect that person once they've completed donation back to your website. And sometimes you can actually specify what that page is. So the first thing I would do is actually check in with your third party. Like I know you can do this with PayPal. Once you've actually like completed a PayPal transaction, you have an option to redirect that person back to your website, and that's what you would say redirect it to my thank you page. I know you're not asking about PayPal. I don't know what system you're actually using, but it's possible your system does actually allow that. If that's not the case, the next best thing to do is actually set up event tracking so that you're tracking if someone actually clicks like that kind of confirmation page on your donate that takes them to a third party. It's not 100% accurate. It won't be as accurate as it would be with a destination goal, but it's sort of like your next best thing that you're able to do. So it kind of does it through event tracking.
Okay, those are good options for us to consider. So on the topic of destination goals, does the destination goal have to be a page on our website?
Yes. So it has to exist on your website because, like I was explaining in the presentation, analytics can only track things that happen on your website, right? Because that's where your analytics code exists. So the destination goal must exist on the page on your website, and it also must have the analytics code installed on that page as well.
So I know you already spoke in great length about destination goals and tracking it within your website. So would you have any recommendations for people who uses external websites for donations or for events?
Right. So that's a good question, and it's sort of similar to what I was mentioning before. First thing I would do is look to see if there's options with that external website where they can point that person back to your website. So that would be the first thing that I would look at. And the second thing is if it doesn't work, then I would look into event tracking as your next option.
Okay. And then just on the topic of destination goals again, if you're trying to track an exact destination, so the exact page URL, is there any benefit to using other options other than the equal to in your when setting your destination goal?
Okay, that's a good question. So let me pull up some example. Let me pull up an example URL and try and build a scenario where it does make sense to do that. So imagine, let's see, the best example is, when I think about this, has to do with a shopping cart. So imagine that you had shopping, or let's say cart, and I'm just going to build a sample URL here. And this one says user 1, right? This one says user 2, user 3. So basically what happens here, and you particularly see this when people buy things, right? You have a URL that says like cart, but also inside the URL, the whatever purchase system will include other variables inside it that are specific to the transaction. So in this example, right, someone has like if you think about buying, a lot of times people will ask you to like log in or sign up before completing the buy, right? And then there's information that's attached to this purchase, right? So user 1, it's saying that user 1 purchased something, user 2 purchased something, user 3 purchased something, right? So in this scenario, you can't actually use an exact destination goal, right? Because it won't account for user 1, 2, or 3. If I make the destination goal, right, just this, it will say it will only track one conversion, right? So that's why you would use destination goal for /cart.php, right? And you would call this a regular expression, or begins with, right? And in this scenario, it would track 3 conversions because it's taking anything with /cart.php regardless of what occurs after it, right? So that's why it would track user 1, 2, and 3 in its conversion. So this is most often where I see that being the scenario. I find with like nonprofit websites, it tends to be less complicated because that there's like less need to reach that level of complexity, I would say. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but to give you something theoretical, like this is the scenario where it would occur.
Yeah, that is very complicated, but it's great to see that in action. So for the next question, in terms of Google Ad Grants, can you add a paid account in a non-paid, so the Google Ad Grants account to the same analytics account?
Yes, another really good question. You can have both, and what that means is you would need to have a Google account that has access to both the paid account and the non-paid account, as well that also has access to analytics. So just make sure your one account has access to all 3 of those properties, and then you can link both of them inside your analytics account using the same process that I showed you today.
All right, perfect. And if AdWords and analytics are linked, does that improve the acquisition keywords info in analytics?
No, unfortunately, it doesn't really. Yeah, okay. I wish I had a better example to show you, but I cannot in this case. But let me see. Let me open up the browser. The one thing it does do, so the report that this question asker was referring to was the acquisition report, and they talking about keywords. There's 2 options, right? There's like paid and organic. It's not going to affect your organic at all. What it will affect is what appears in your paid keywords report. So that's the only difference that happens when you actually link in your AdWords and your analytics. One caveat to that, something that will help you a little bit, it won't fix it, but it will help you a little bit, is if you actually link something called Google Webmaster Tools with your analytics account. So that will actually help you with the organic keywords just a little bit, but it doesn't make in my experience, a significant difference.
All right. I'm just going to give everyone a bit of time. It seems like that is our last question for the Q&A session, so we're going to end it just a little bit early. So I just want to take time to thank you, Simon and Charles, for doing this webinar for us, walking us through Google AdWords. Again, this is part 3. For those of you that have not seen or have missed part 1 and part 2, Tierney actually has given the links in the chat. It's available on our YouTube channel. This webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available after this webinar has ended. But in the meantime, we want to thank you again for joining us, for taking time to learn about Google AdWords. I just want to take a moment to say that ConnectAd is very experienced in this field, as you can see, or just get a touch of how much is involved in running your AdWords campaign, setting it up, developing the strategy, and the monitoring it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with them or even contact them for their services. They can do amazing work for your nonprofit. And after this webinar, we will also actually have a short survey to just see if you would like any of us to follow up with you, if you have additional questions that maybe were not covered in this webinar, or if you think of something afterwards as well. So again, I want to take time to thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.